Hey everyone, we've been waiting for 2-3 minutes more till people join in. Glad to have you here. We'll just wait for a few minutes more. Just a minute.
Sure.
I think we can start the session. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's workshop. We have with us today Mayur Alekar from Arcana Network. Thank you so much for taking the time out. With Mayur, we will be talking about onboarding users in Web3 and managing the data with Arcana. However, we will be giving away cool swags to people along the way. Feel free to ask questions down in the Q&A tab and Mayur will try to answer your queries. Without further ado, let's begin the workshop. Over to you, Mayur.
All right, great. Thanks so much. And thanks for having me here today. Great to see a lot of people here on the call. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Sorry guys, just 1 second, a small issue. Oh, sorry about that. You guys can hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can start the session. Right.
Share my screen and get started. One second.
Hey, Mayur, can you unmute the session?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Mayur. I'm the founder and CEO of Arcana. At Arcana, we're building a privacy stack for developers to build more secure, privacy-preserving apps. I'm here to talk today about a very specific portion of our stack, which is called the Arcana Auth, that basically helps simplify onboarding for Web3 dApps. So the number one, like there are a bunch of problems with essentially onboarding users to any sort of decentralized application. First question is, questions are around nativity, as in how well versed are your users with tech in general, with the internet? Are they used to paradigms that and applications that they already use? In some cases, because blockchains are so wonderful, they kind of enable a whole bunch of things for the unbanked, for farmers, for all of these sorts of people, also, as opposed to like a DeFi trader, right? So the first question is, are your users tech native? And secondly, if they are tech native, are they Web3 native? If the answer to either of those is no, then onboarding a user can be really, really hard. The second is, of course, ease of use. The number one issue being around, wallets. Do you require a user to hold a wallet to basically access your dApp, right? And if that is the case, then you're going to basically introduce a point of friction right at the first step. And users are going to think twice if they have to kind of, install a third-party application that they probably never heard about. And do they need to end up kind of managing their keys or their seed phrases and those sorts of things, right? So these are questions that are definitely important and need to be considered when you're thinking about onboarding. And finally, how much time does it take for your user to land on your application's homepage and get to start using the actual app, right? And if it's going to take a bunch of time, you're going to experience a lot of dropouts. So what users essentially need is a familiar setting, right? So that they're not intimidated. If the first thing that you tell them to do is, oh, you're going to need a private key or a public key and those sorts of things, they're going to start to wonder, what this is all about. Ease of use, of course, so they don't get overwhelmed if they have to install a wallet, and if they have to go ahead and basically manage their seed phrase and all of the sorts of things. You are really going to start to feel like, there's lots of things that they need to do before they start interacting with your app. And they basically need quick access, right? We are in the world right now where you basically you sign in with Google and you immediately start using the application of your choice, right? So this is what actually users need, and this is currently unavailable to most people on most decentralized applications. So this is where we can help. The Arcana Auth basically provides 3 modes for users to authenticate themselves and for them to actually be able to do so much more. Mode 1 is a passwordless setup where basically the user can enter their mobile number or their email and they get sent an OTP, and basically an OTP based login does not require any sort of passwords. This can be used for all of your non-tech savvy people if that's your use case, right? If that's your target audience. And of course, social logins. We support a host of social logins: Gmail, Twitter, Reddit, Twitch, Discord, etc., etc. And this is something that typically internet natives, people who are very familiar with using applications in Web2 already know and use. And finally, of course, for the Web3 natives is the ability to bring your own keys. So let's say you have users who already have their MetaMask or their wallet connects, and they already have their keys. Then we also kind of support bring your own keys sort of scenarios. So essentially, what do users get with the Arcana Auth? Your users actually end up getting keys. And when I say keys, I basically mean like a public-private key pair. Right now, they get a public-private key pair on any EVM chain. So this could be Ethereum, Polygon, BSC. That's what we support right now. But in the future, we will be supporting everything from other layer ones as well, like Solana, Near, etc., etc. And what do the users actually do with these keys? They can actually do a bunch of things. Now they can actually encrypt data. This is standard public key cryptography. You can actually use your public key to encrypt data and store it somewhere. They can sign transactions because now they have a private key, and that's what you end up using for signing transactions. And of course, the private key, because it's on a specific chain, gives them access to a particular wallet. So how does it work, right? So with Arcana, you basically get an SDK, which is your doorway to the entire Arcana network. The integration literally takes you minutes. I'll walk you through it very soon. And once you integrate it into your app, let's take the example of, say, Google. So the user basically signs up with their Gmail, like most internet natives are used to. The Google servers authenticate the email of the user, and once the Arcana DKG nodes learn of the user's authentication in step 2, then they basically, each of the nodes relays a unique piece or a share of an encrypted private key. So the DKG nodes, all of them hold one unique piece of the key. And these pieces are basically streamed down to the client side, basically to your application. And that's where these pieces can then be put together and give the user a private key that they could use for all of these 3 things that I spoke about, right? So yeah, without further ado, we'll quickly jump into like a demo. So how it starts with is basically coming to the Arcana developer dashboard. It's dashboard.arcana.network. We are currently on our alpha testnet. Later this month, we'll be launching our beta with a whole bunch of other features. But you basically sign in. Let's say, so I'm the developer of a dApp, and I go to the dashboard. I sign in with my account. It signs me in. So I need to configure my application that I want to build and how I want to use Arcana. So enter an app name. Next, there are a bunch of things here. So I'm going to like skip these things because that's not the focus of conversation today. We'll just jump to the auth part. So this is the auth part, and let's say I want to basically authenticate my users with Google. I need to enter a client ID. I have a ready-made client ID. This is typically the client ID you get from Google. This is the link to kind of go get a client ID for your application. You enter it, you save, and you hit next. You can set some user limits. I'm going to skip this part also. And you save. And it's going to go ahead and create an app for you, basically. So great. So this is what your dashboard looks like once you've signed up. I just need to like copy this app ID. Think of the app ID as basically your API key. And that's it. I just jump into my app. I have a very simple app here. I'm going to show you how it looks also. This is it. Basically, some basic HTML. I have some ready-made code here. All of these code snippets you'll find in our documentation. And I just paste them into this. And now I go into these codes. I just need to paste my app ID here. This file. Okay, so now hopefully everything should work. So I log in with Google. and I log in with some Google account, and basically logs me in. If you see here, it has fetched the private key, and this private key remains in app memory. It doesn't go out anywhere else. Okay, so we've done that. So this is a typical like file sharing sort of application. You can build many different kinds of applications, but file sharing is a simple example. So once I've actually logged in, now I've identified myself. I have my public-private key pair. I can go ahead and actually, like in this particular app's case, go ahead, pick a file. And what happens is this file first gets encrypted on the client side, and then it gets uploaded. You can see here. So the encryption got done. The upload is also basically done. Now, if I just refresh, it shows up here. There's an identifier for this file, and this is what I'd use. So now I can go ahead and give people access. So let's say I give some email access. I say I want to give access to this particular file, and I say share. Just wait a minute, and it should get shared. Yeah, shared with this email. Now I log in with that account. So if I do a quick refresh, then you can see that the file is shared with me. I can basically save this and download this file. And what happens is the file is now fetched from the Arcana storage network, and it gets basically downloaded and then decrypted before I can actually get access to it. So what we've enabled is basically a way for you to kind of share data, store data completely encrypted at rest, and share it with people, and only they will have access to it. Now, no one else in between will ever have access to this data. So that's how we bring like privacy and security to everything. So as you can see, I was able to download. I can go back to the original user's account, and I can say, revoke access. And in a bit, this access will get revoked. And I go ahead and I try and download this file. You get the error that says you can't download this file. It's no longer accessible by you. I refresh, that entry will also kind of like disappear. So this is basically what we can enable, and the use cases are tremendous. But yeah, fundamentally, it all starts with the auth and giving users a public-private key pair. And we do it in a way that's, not exactly, it's somewhere in between self-custody and where you expect users to come with their own keys, and between like a custodial solution, like say one of the centralized exchanges where they hold your keys and they have access to them. So this is like a midway way, and this is exactly what we enable. So yeah, I would be very happy to kind of take questions. So I'll jump to the Q&A. Is that what I should do?
Yeah.
How is Arcana different from Portis? Anish asked this, which is also social logins. So yeah, Anish, great question. We're almost exactly the same as something like Portis, except in the way we generate and handle the keys. Everyone does it in their own way, and we do it in a very different way ourselves. The cryptography involved is different. Like Portis, Web3 Auth, these people use certain papers, like cryptography papers, research papers. We use slightly more updated ones, and which should result in more efficient and slightly more secure solutions. Yeah, Shivansh asked, does it mean we're basically helping users connect their pre-existing socials to a Web3 wallet like MetaMask or Phantom? So we do help users connect to pre-existing socials, which is like a great thing, right? So if you're a Web2 app, you want to like move to Web3, you can just move all your users, and now they can start using your app like a Web3 app, because now they have access to a wallet, they can sign transactions and all those lovely things. We are building ways for the users to kind of claim their keys. So once you feel like, you know, users have are now educated and now understand how to do self-custody using a third-party wallet like say MetaMask or any other wallet, we'll give them a way to kind of, you know, get their keys and do self-custody, and they can choose if they want to be forgotten by the Arcana network altogether, and that's something we can enable. So yeah. Ankit asks, Arcana provides auth like MetaMask. Sorry, where did it go? Yeah, but login can be done through other. Yes, absolutely. That's what we provide. Bhavya is asking, can a file or video format be sent and received? Can data be broadcasted to? Absolutely. So this is the core feature of what we enable. We apply this to everything from file sharing scenarios. You could build a decentralized Dropbox if you want. You could use this if you're building an NFT platform, a game that involves NFTs, we can actually bring security to the underlying asset, and, you know, which gets shared or accessed by only a certain number of people. So yeah. Nitin asks, end user creates account using Google, but eventually when the user creates wallet MetaMask, can she use the same private key? So like I said earlier, we're creating ways for the user to kind of basically, you know, claim these keys and make it their own, and therefore go ahead and not have to use Google or Twitter or anything else for login. They can basically start using their MetaMask like they would. So we're basically like a means to get the next like million or a billion people onto Web3, right? The next million billion people have no clue what private keys are, have no clue what MetaMask is. They don't know how to share, basically store their seed phrase and the importance of all of those things. And the more they get educated and the more they feel confident of being able to do so is when they would not require these means of authentication. So, but till we get to that point, we need to evolve, right? So we are an answer for today's problems, and hopefully we get to a point where people actually do self-custody, because nothing is more important than that. Yash asks, will we be able to get the data from Google services like name, profile pics? Yes, of course, you get all public data that the user has made public. So we'll make that, basically the API makes it available and you can use it. Vidya asks, does Arcana Auth support password reset recovery? So essentially we use social logins and passwordless methods. So you actually never need to create a password as such. So if you use a social login, you go ahead and use it. But what we do provide is social recovery of your private key, right? So you don't have to ever store your private key anywhere. So if you have a use case that does not involve does not have hardcore requirements, like you're not a DeFi trader, or if you're making like a social network and things like that, this is a great solution. Then John asks, if you have sign up with password later, can the user have private exported? Yes, I think I've answered the second part. But you can also, with Arcana in the future, be able to do custom OAuth, basically. If you don't want to use, let's say, Gmail or Facebook, you can totally use like custom OAuth, where you ask the user for, say, username and password, and then you become the verifying authority, or rather your server, your app server does. And as long as we get someone to do a trusted third party to do the verification or authentication of the ID of the user, it's totally fine. Saimendra asks, using Arcana, if we interact with our MetaMask wallet, then who manages the secret phase of the wallet? And if Arcana does that, how is it kept secret? So, if you, I'm guessing you're talking about like bring your own keys sort of scenarios. Yeah, in bring your own keys scenarios, we never, like if you're using MetaMask to kind of, do say log in with Ethereum or something like that, we never get access to the private key, and everything that you need to do to kind of say encrypt data, sign transactions, we give you an auth provider, a Web3 provider, and that basically invokes your MetaMask to get all of that stuff done, whether it's to encrypt data or whether it's to sign a transaction, access your wallet, things like that. So it's never an issue. Akash asks, so the private keys are stored in Arcana? Yes, they are stored. So we create a buffer of private keys, and this creation process is the crucial part. So we use something called distributed key generation. It's essentially like a cryptographic primitive, where you have multiple dealers creating like pieces of this key, and these pieces of the key go and sit on multiple nodes. So unless like a large number of the nodes collude, there is no way of actually kind of getting hold of these private keys. And of course, for them to collude, that would mean that they're breaking the rules of our proof of stake network. Their stake gets slashed. So that's the game theory behind it, like any other proof of stake network. With which key Arcana storage encrypts the file? So we actually encrypt files with a symmetric key, AES 256, and the symmetric key is what is encrypted with your public key. And we do that because essentially symmetric key encryption is much faster than asymmetric or public key encryption. So the large files are encrypted with a symmetric key that we generate, and the symmetric key is then encrypted with your public key, so no one else will have access to it. What is the difference between Arcana Auth and OAuth? Ridhya asked this. Honestly, we just leverage existing OAuth mechanisms, and we provide developers with a variety of ways. Now, the developers can actually decide, based on their target audience, the kind of users that they have, the use case, what sort of auth they require. And you can obviously with Arcana choose multiple auth mechanisms to offer your users. Anish asks, is Arcana like OAuth? No, it isn't. We are a layer on top of it. Prince asks, hi there, thanks. Okay, I read about DKG. Can you just quickly brief about it and erasure storage settings and how that works? It's very exciting. So yeah, this is like a fairly involved conversation, but I think I just spoke about the DKG bits and how that works. But you can hit me up on Twitter anytime. I'm at Mayur Relikar, and we'll be more than happy to kind of walk you through it in detail. I don't think we have enough time to do it right now on this call. Shivansh Kalra asks, is Arcana actually storing the private keys and connecting with socials? Yes, we are, but like I said, it's the way we store it and the proof of stake mechanism that we have for all of the nodes kind of will ensure that the private keys themselves can't be like accessed unless someone really is willing to lose a lot of stake. Someone anonymous asks, can I use Arcana for both authentication and storing user data? Yes, absolutely. That's what we do. So we feel like every app has like a data pipe, either between the user and the server or the user and another user. And we kind of bring security privacy to that pipe. And you can use this for storage scenarios, managing access, and authentication. Those are the three pieces of our stack. Yash asks, doesn't storing the data of Arcana node doesn't make it centralized? So it's not one node, it's actually distributed nodes, and these are all third-party entities who basically participate in the proof of stake consensus. So they all stake some tokens, Normal token holders can also delegate their stake to one of these validators. When we launch our mainnet, we're looking to have like 21 validators, and we'll keep growing that number as we go. So it'll be fairly decentralized. OAuth comes with password recovery. Can Arcana allow the same for the dApp that uses OAuth for onboarding? So you can, so the password recovery for, say, your Gmail happens on Gmail, so we don't interfere with that. But you can, obviously, you never have to remember your private key or seed phrase or anything like that if you're using Arcana Auth and using one of the passwordless or social login mechanisms. Sanjay asks a question, which I've just answered. Yes, you can use it for both authentication, storing data, managing access, all three things. How to shift users from Web2 to Web3? Anushka asked this question because it's not easy for them to understand. That's precisely why we're here. We feel like, there's going to be many applications that are going to be kind of redesigned to be more decentralized and more Web3. And we are already talking to so many partners in the Web2 space who are very interested in moving to Web3. And we are an easy way for them to kind of get in and for their users to, have like the seamless onboarding experience. Kabir asks, so if I'm making a project with Arcana, all I need is to make a web app and use Arcana API. For your storage needs, for your access management needs, and for your auth needs, yes. That's all you would need to do. If whatever business logic you have for your application, it could be anything, right? If it could have its own server, it could have its own smart contracts, it could have anything else. We don't interfere on anything else. We are primarily on the data layer. So anything, all your application logic, you write, however, wherever, we don't interfere. We allow you to have your own business models with your users. It's like, you should try it. You'll see. Hridyas, can we use Arcana to store data? Yes. Like I said, auth, storage, and managing access. Bhavia's gateway nodes only for connecting users, or it transfers file as well. So gateway nodes in Arcana are basically, like a way to improve the user experience. They basically act like a brokerage system. They allow users to know what is the endpoint to like reach a file. They do a bunch of validation, a whole bunch of things like that, which just generally improve user and developer experience. Sanjay asks, then Arcana is the combination of Auth0 and database with encryption. Yeah, we are not a database yet, but we are a file store. So you could say Auth0 and S3, for example. Right. And lastly, Probir asks, if my social password is hacked, leaked, I would lose my Arcana security, right? Yes, absolutely. That's the trade-off. If your account is hacked, then they could use your Gmail to essentially log into an app where you use Arcana and gain access to your keys. So that's definitely a trade-off that you have to consider when you use Arcana. But we have, which is why the ultimate way of dealing with this is only if the end user does self-custody. But to get there, a lot of evolution needs to happen. So yeah.
I think, Mayo, this is the right time to wrap it up. It was a great session, very informative, and people in the chat are saying that it's the best workshop yet. So props to you, because you have patiently answered all the questions that they had. So chats are coming in, Mayur. That was awesome. So glad everyone got their questions answered. Thank you so much for coming in. It was a pleasure hosting you. Take care, Mayur.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for all the wonderful questions. And nothing makes us happier than you guys asking all these questions and enjoying these things. Yeah. And reach out to me at Mayur Relekar on Twitter anytime. DMs open for absolutely anything.
Okay.
Take care.
Take care.